this use of AI, of Watson, to understand the consumer language. I mean, this is not, I mean, again, if we go back years, this is natural language processing, and so this is the actual voice of the consumer who are using these ad blocking software tools and saying, this is why I do it, this is why I would turn it off, or this is why I'm not yet considering it. So if we think about, this is the frustration that's coming through loud and clear. We know now there are ways that we can solve the challenge. And one of the ways to solve the challenge is making sure that we're targeting the right message to the right person. Now, the folks at Oracle Data Cloud and Datalogics have been doing this for years, but I think the advance that Audrey Thompson is going to share with us today is work that they've been doing to integrate identification from the PC-based with mobile identification and make sure to teach us how to bring all of that together to make sure we're talking about the same person no matter what device they're using. So, Audrey Thompson is Director of Data Science with Oracle Data Cloud. She first started with the Datalogics team a number of years ago. Her R&D work in data targeting has been incorporated in such things as the DLX ROI tools. And we're very excited to have her here today. So please join me in welcoming Audrey Thompson.
Thank you so much. Or does the green?
Yeah.
I think I can do that. Hi, everybody. All right. So as mentioned, my name is Audrey Thompson. I am the Director of Data Science, Identity Data Science to be specific, at the Oracle Data Cloud. The team that I lead focuses on creating the data science that ultimately fuels our ODC identity graph. So first of all, what do I mean when I say identity? For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to talk about identity as the ability to completely and accurately collect information about a user, including all of their touch points. So when I say collecting information about a user, who they are, what they do, who they talk to potentially, where they live. And when I talk about touch points, I'm talking about the computers, the phones, the TVs, the email addresses that you all have access to at many times throughout the day. So that's our definition of identity. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to focus on maximizing mobile ROI, and specifically, why is it that identity matters so much? In marketing, valuable ad dollars can be completely wasted if you have the right ad at the right time, but unfortunately, you hit the wrong person. In order to resolve that, an identity graph is really required. An identity graph will allow you to accurately, completely identify your users to ensure that you are actually targeting the right person at the right time with the right ad. So let's explore a little bit more. As a marketer, my job really comes down to one thing. I don't mean to minimize what we do, but just go with me here. So I need to find the right ad to give to the right person at the right time. Well, that seems simple enough. The key, though, is that I want to do this such that I influence a consumer's behavior, and I take my little pool of ad dollars, and I make it a bigger pool of revenue dollars. That would be my ultimate goal. So when it comes to adding mobile to this mix, what changed? Well, I'm still trying to maximize my ROI. I'm still trying to take the right ad, put it in front of the right person at the right time, and take my little pool of ad money and make it a bigger pool of incremental revenue. That's it. Now, wait a minute. We're all here for a conference called Mastering Mobile Marketing. If it's really that simple and I just got to do the job I've been doing all along, then I think I'm going to go get one of those bikes outside and just take a little ride, and I'll be back later. Not so fast. The reality is that there are a few new things that we need to solve when it comes for mobile across all three of these attributes. The first thing, when we're talking about getting the right ad in front of the right person, you really have to think about optimizing mobile within your broader digital strategy. Now, for fun, mobile, when it entered into our world as a channel, didn't just bring one way for you to reach a consumer. It actually brought a few. So first, there was mobile browser. That's cool. Now there was also walled garden mobiles, which are kind of like our, our hosts here today, Facebook. And then there's a third, which I'll call open mobile. So even by the introduction of one additional channel, we actually got a lot of different ways that we could reach a consumer. The second trick when we're trying to solve for mobile comes down to identifying the right person. As our entire digital ecosystem has become so much more fragmented, identity has become extremely fragmented. In order to solve for this, having a highly accurate and complete ID graph allows you to make sure that you are actually getting the same user across different channels and reaching the right user. That's actually very important. That's the right person attribute of this. And then, of course, you have the right time. All of you have this little pamphlet, the Meet Ann. If you open that, I don't need to say anything else. I mean, with the introduction of mobile, people are available and they are consuming media so much more than they were before. It's not just at home when they're eating a meal or on their lunch break. It is continual. And that changes how we as marketers have to think about reaching our consumers for that right time piece. Of these three, the most significant risk to ROI is identity. Like I mentioned, our digital ecosystem is getting extremely fragmented. Well, what happens when that occurs is that my identity and all of your identities become very fragmented across our entire ecosystem. The data about who I am is strewn everywhere. The only way for a marketer to truly understand who a person is and collect all these different disparate bits of identity is through an identity graph. These fragmented identities that we have really have to be reconciled correctly to ensure that your precious media dollars don't just get wasted going to the wrong user. So I could say this, and that sounds great, but let me just give you an example. Even the most well-designed campaign and ad can be completely wasted if you reach the wrong person. So I'm going to take my day job as identity data science, and I'm going to change my job. Now I work for a dog food company, and I really want to run a mobile ad campaign. To do that, I would really like to reach people that own dogs and try and incent them to buy some more dog food. Seems reasonable. I have $60,000. I just got an extra $10,000 bump. So I have $60,000 that I'm going to spend on this ad campaign. I've identified my group of people. Luckily, I actually run this campaign, and I reach 10 million unique dog owners. Now, I'm going to assume that when I do this, the average incremental revenue that I'm going to generate is going to be 1 penny. If I do this, now my campaign has generated $100,000, and guess what? I succeeded. I took my little pool of ad money, and I made more money out of that little pool. This is great. I'm really excited right now. But let's look at a slightly different scenario. All right, I still work for this company. I haven't gone back to my usual job yet. I still have my $60,000. That's pretty good. I wish I had more, but I'll stick with the $60,000. Now, though, instead of reaching 10 million users that are dog owners, I actually hit 5 million that are dog owners, and I hit 5 million that are non-dog owners. Well, that's too bad, because I thought I was reaching dog owners. When this actually plays out, then, I'm only able to generate $50,000 of incremental revenue, nothing from down here. Because look, this person not only doesn't have a dog, actually don't really like dogs. So the fact that I showed them an ad to buy dog food has 0 probability of generating any revenue from my little pocket of money that I spent. So this isn't so good. How could this happen? Our dog owner friend was at home, went on their computer and did some sort of activity in which that identified them, their cookie specifically, as a dog owner. When I'm going out to build my campaign for my dog food company, I went and said, look, I want to know all of the cookies that have exhibited dog owner behavior. I want to target those people, but I want to do it on mobile ad IDs. So that's cool. I have cookies that are dog owners. I'm going to convert them to mobile ad IDs through an identity graph. Remember, that's the way that you can transfer from one ID space to another ID space. Though in reality, that mobile ad ID actually belongs to a non-dog owner. wait a second, where did that come from? The culprit here is your identity graph. Unfortunately, the mobile ad ID inherited the wrong data characteristics, meaning that you actually reached a non-dog owner and ultimately wasted your ad dollars. You were never going to have a chance of generating your incremental revenue. The key to mitigating this risk is using a scaled and probabilistically validated identity graph. So an identity graph will collect and connect a bunch of information about a user. One that is scaled and probabilistically validated will not only collect that information and put it in a place that's accessible, but it will actually evaluate and have a level of confidence between the connections that it has within it. Only when you have this sort of level of confidence will you as an advertiser be confident that when you take your data from one type of ID and transfer it to another ID that's been, high strength between those two IDs, only then are you confident that you're transferring the data in an appropriate way that will reach somebody that still has those characteristics that you care about. So when it comes down to it, when you're trying to maximize your mobile impact on ROI, we do want to put the right mobile ad ID in front of the right person at the right time. Having the right identity graph really is important because of those very fragmented sorts of profiles that we have across all of the digital ecosystems that we care about. In this example here, you can see we have home, we have work, we have open mobile, TV, we have all sorts of options. But you as a marketer really just want to really find that person that cares about the ad that you're showing to them. So having that identity graph takes that mess and creates this. So when it comes down to it, we really do care about putting the right ad in front of the right person at the right time. That's something we've been doing for a long time, and that's still very important. What I'm saying here is that one of the things that you need to focus on is your ability to connect identities. That becomes even more important because your well-designed campaign isn't going to be successful if you can't actually reach the right person. By having that highly accurate identity graph, marketers can now seamlessly integrate mobile into the user experience. You have the right mobile ad at the right time and provide more relevant content that people will enjoy or start to respond to. Because remember, you're trying to take your little pool of ad money and make it a bigger pool of revenue dollars based on influencing a consumer's behavior. You can't do that if you don't understand the consumer that you're targeting in the first place. That's where the unified user profile becomes extremely important. All those different disparate places where I've left hints about who I am, I want to bring those together so that a marketer can more accurately target me and give me relevant ads. I'll be less inclined to put an ad blocker in place, let's be honest. So when it comes down to this, your job is still the same. You are still responsible for putting the right ad in front of the right person at the right time. But even that well-defined and well-designed campaign will be completely undermined if identity is not taken care of. So what do you need to do? Ultimately, what you need to do is not be afraid to ask the question. Ask, how do you connect these identities together? Tell me more. How are you confident that this cookie actually belongs to this mobile ad ID? Can you tell me a level of confidence that goes into that? That is actually really important, and don't be shy. Our industry is continually evolving in our ability to reconcile all of those identities back together, and we'll continually get better at doing that, but you as a marketer need to protect those ad dollars that you're trying to spend. Make sure that you're spending them in the right place with the right person. That is absolutely crucial, because let's be honest, a non-dog owner has no use for dog food. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Oh, did you want to do questions?
No, I'm going to ask, wait, so here, let's take some questions. Let's get the microphone. That'll be great, because we've got it set up here. Well, we know, we are.
When I catch it. So this is super important, I agree. Your graphic showed 5 different channel touch points that are all registered. So with the exception of the browser window, the other ones all have reg IDs. When you have Reg ID, the world of graph is very different. What about anonymous? Because every brand, especially ones that are media-oriented, live mostly in the world of anonymous and the world of non-reg.
Yeah, so that's a good question, because you're saying, well, if you have somebody log in and you just know who they are, game over, you're good, right?
As a starting point, but unless you connect the cookies and everything else, yes. But if you're just in anonymous,
yeah, that's right. So you were talking about connecting cookies, which are anonymous, and then mobile ad IDs, let's say, which are also anonymous. You don't really know who the user is, but you're trying to put those together. Is that correct?
I'm actually not saying the cookies are anonymous, because they're not. They're connected to a very specific ID tag, right, and an ID beacon. But the channels that you showed, I wish that you showed an anonymous pool that is, bought or sold for remnant traffic. That is really the bulk of the lost revenue. It isn't in the premium inventory. Premium inventory is what you know, and it's traditionally regged.
So are you talking about the image that has the person in the middle and you have everything going back to the person?
No, I'm talking about the channels. Where you have the desktop, you have the mobile, not this one. Yeah, this one, right? Okay. So that ecosystem here for a regged user, which every one of those has, with probably the exception of Chrome, doesn't really need a device ID because you already know every single one. But what about all of the other ones that are anonymous?
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. So Open Mobile, for example, that's not reg-based. There is a small portion where you're going to have somebody log into an app.
No, but you have a device, right? And your device has an inherent IP address because it's a device from a carrier. Therefore, known.
What is known?
You have a mobile number. Your mobile number through your carrier is a known reg information piece right there.
Sure, but how do you connect that to everything else?
Well, that's the issue of deduplicating things that are regged versus non-regged. Right. I think this may be a conversation for a different time.
Yeah.
I think I'm rat-holing this.
I think the key with what we're talking about with identity graph is taking all those different touch points, and reg is a big part of it because that is a big signal that you are pulling those together. But there are those anonymous things that are still relevant that you want to include in the identity graph. And ultimately what you're doing is trying to take data from one aspect and transfer it to another aspect and know that it's actually reaching the right person.
Yeah, no, I'm totally clear on how this works. Okay. All I'm saying is it's missing an entire section of anonymous users that is 80% of those people that belong in the graph, but is ungettable unless you dedupe cookies, unless you do all of that. And so I'm saying that the picture is incomplete because if you only talk about registered users, it's super straightforward. It's a science. It's like 1, 2, 3. But 80% of audiences are, they're anonymous.
So taking with the cookie-based example, so cookies, they are generally anonymous. You do have some information. You can try and track them together. But if you're trying to take cookie and go to mobile ad ID and you have no idea who the person is, absolutely no idea, you care about that, right? Those would be an example of 2 anonymous IDs that you're trying to target based on information from one and transferring it to the other. Is that correct?
I believe that is one example.
Yeah. So in that case, you're right. Going back to the actual user, this offline user that is in the middle and even represented here doesn't matter to you. But even within the identity graph, you can connect those together even without having the user. The way to connect those together, you can generate some sort of truth. So some sort of fact, if you will, that a cookie and a mobile ad ID are actually belong together, and then use that in order to evaluate all the other links within your graph. The connections can be made and then evaluated, whether they're anonymous or whether they're actually real users. It doesn't matter. So I hear your point about registration-based kind of things. Those are a lot easier to tie together. But when you're trying to reconcile all of that together, it can become a little bit more difficult in order to be sure that you have the right people.
I was hoping you were going to say the identity beacon will be our next standard, and that's how we reconcile this.
Didn't go there.
No, okay. Look, and I think that I think it's a great conversation, and then I know we probably got a little bit down a rabbit hole there. But I think it's great in the sense that, look, I don't think philosophically or conceptually anybody would argue with the idea of saying, let's integrate every available source of information that we have about a user across all their devices. I think what we're saying is that with each piece that we get, there are even newer pieces that come in, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, I thought I just solved a brick here, and I got to bring a new pick over there. I'm going to suggest that you guys, that you take this and have a follow-up conversation, because I know there's very passionate discussion about it. But we want to bring our next speakers on, so Audrey, thank you so much.